the layouts, Atlas layout UI, and what are the templates, what are the page templates, what are the different layouts available with out of the box Atlas layout, and what are the different widgets available. And also we have created a page and designed using existing widgets and selected the layout, and we have observed the changes by changing the layout properties, how it is impacting the UI. Okay, so anyone has any questions on yesterday's topic? So let us continue. So if you observe, whenever we are launching the application will be deployed to deployment folder. It will create a deployment folder and it will create the necessary resource to show it as a web application. So so for every application, if we see in the URL, we are seeing the index.html page. So that index.html, actually we are not creating anywhere here, right? So you can see the index.html page in app project folder. And also currently we are running the application without enabling the security. That means currently there is no secure content, securely accessed pages available. So every page whatever we create will be accessed by anyone. If you go to app and show app directory in Explorer, it will land you on the project folder. So this is deployment folder, actually it is creating. So under deployment, under web, we will have all the resources created here. So this is the index page. It is actually using initially to launch the application. So if you see the index.html, the content is generated with different HTML elements. There is nothing else. You will not see any of the page content here. On JavaScript and some links to icons and style sheet, these are. So this is an index.html. By default, it will use it as the default page, HTML page to launch the application. So the same content in the same HTML content in the body, here there is no content in the body. The page whatever we have configured as the default home page, default home page in the navigation, that page that we have designed here, that page will be rendered, that content will be embedded into that HTML content and rendered as the home page. If you see here, this is index.html. I am clicking on the categories now. See, the URL is not changing. So everything will be wrapped into this HTML only, index.html only. So this is called actually SPA, single page application. So it will have one page. The page content will be updated whenever you are clicking on a button or any activity based on the response received from the application server. Okay. This is about index.html that will be used as the default landing HTML page. If we enable the, one second, if we enable the security, if the default homepage, suppose this is the default homepage currently, sorry, not this one, this is the default homepage. Okay, if this default homepage have any security access set like visible for, this is a property which will decide who can see the page, who can have the access to this page. So based on that, based on that, if it has any security set, then it will be considered as a secure page. And if this is the, if the home page is the, is having the security access set here, then it will automatically redirect the user to login page. Why? Because here suppose we are setting for visible for user only, okay, and security enabled. What happens? It does not know whether the user accessing, the endpoint user accessing, the end user accessing belongs to which role, whether he is administrator or user, until you logs into the application. The application cannot decide, right? So it will redirect you to the login page. Once you log in, based on the credentials, based on the role assigned to the particular user, it will allow the user to see the page. If we enable this, we need to set security for all the pages, who can access, who cannot access, like that. So suppose we can say there are some pages where user can have access publicly without having any role. Some pages needs to be designed like that. We can create a separate module and we can allow all the users in that module to access the pages. In that way we can manage also. So whenever he is trying to access one of the pages in this module, then it will redirect to the login page automatically. Like that we can configure. Okay. For now, I am disabling the security. Later we will discuss about this again. Any questions?
No.
No questions. Okay. So suppose I wanted to change the colors of these buttons. Okay. So where is this page for now? We are using category overview page, I believe. Home page. This is, suppose we are going, this is new category page. Okay. Suppose you wanted to set some color to this button. These are default buttons. Here you can see, here you can see the button style success. If you set it to success, it will display in a color that was mapped to the success. If you add some success style to here, it will, in HTML, it will add some CSS property. So based on that CSS property, based on the color defined for that CSS property in the CSS files, that will be displayed. Suppose if I wanted to make some customization of the CSS, where we are doing this one. So in the app folder, if you go to the theme source, you will see all the modules as folders here. So our module is my first module. So under my first module, we will have two folders, web and native. So if you see here, design properties, we can define where we can customize our CSS, our pages. We can declare our CSS. So you can use SAS, all those things. For example, if you can see in the existing how it has been used. Here there is no. Like this, you can write SAS also. This main.scs file, SAS file, importing the other file, SAS files. This is based on the Widget properties, it is considering the class that needs to be added to the HTML. There are, for some widget, there you will see the properties like this, spacing top, all this. So based on the selection in the properties, it is deciding what class needs to be added. These are main core files. Based on the bootstrap, there is already most of the CSS was defined here. So if I wanted to add my CSS somewhere, so I can write here. You can have your own CS file or something like this. You need to save it here.
Think it is under themes.
I Hello.
Think themes or styles it is there. Maybe we need to stay store there. Yeah. Yeah. Theme course. Okay.
So what is your doubt? Do you have
No,
any
no,
doubt?
no. Yeah. You can proceed.
Okay. You can define your custom SAS files like this, and you can import them in the main. So then if you set the property here, you need to use the class property here as ready.
Right.
Then it will be applied. So here you can write the same complete CSS here
Mm-hmm.
like this. Background color red. In this way also we can do. But the difference is, if you are aware of the HTML content, if you add it in the CSS, so if you add it in the CSS, that will be added as a class here like this,
Mm.
as a class name. Okay. If you add it in the style, that will be added as a style equal to complete style here. I will show you. Which button category overview page? Button, new button one. This one. cat. So we can see it in the style attribute of the HTML. If you declare in the C class, it will be added as a C class name in the class attribute of the HTML element. This one only, but it is not getting affected because of, I believe, because it is a system controlled buttons, but it needs to important. Sorry, it was there is a spelling mistake. That is the reason it is not getting added.
Yeah.
If you see here, it has added style attribute to the HTML element, button element, and added the CSS what we have declared there. Okay.
But if we add style in for that button, it means that it is inline style only. It means it should applicable only for that particular
That
button.
button only, right? That button only. Because you are
So
writing to that button properties only, right?
right, right. So if we write on the class, right? So whenever we are
If you
edit in the
declare the
system,
class, if you declare the
hmm,
class, wherever you use that class, based on
be
the
the one.
CSS you have defined, it will be applicable to all those elements.
Got it, got it. Yeah.
That is different. Okay.
Hmm, correct.
And also
Yes.
better to use the CSS files only. Try to
Understood.
avoid inline class. Okay.
Right.
Inline styling. Okay. This is how we can change the CSS also. You need to go to the app directory and in theme folder, theme source folder, you can find your module, and under your module, under web, you can add your CSS file, source file, and you can import that source file into main and write your CSS code in the your custom source file.
Hmm. Suppose I want to mouse over that button, new button, right? So I want to
Hmm.
change the same
Hmm.
process, right?
Same process.
Instead of background color,
You need
then
to
some
define,
red.
so you need to have, yeah, you need to have one class name here, you need to have one class name here. Okay.
Mm,
Here,
mm,
so the same class name, by using the same class name, you can declare the CSS in this file.
mm. So
Okay.
mouse over like that property we need to set and we need to add it in that class.
Right.
Okay, okay.
Okay. You can practice it and let me know if you have any questions. Okay.
So
Okay.
here we can add it in two places, right, Sri?
Yeah, here this is inline styling actually. Here we are declaring complete style, right? Here we are giving a name to all the group of CSS properties, one class name, right?
Okay.
In the class and style are different, right? Can you come again? What is your question exactly?
Like here we are declaring the CSS in two places, right? Here in the properties appearance itself and in the main class, like in the folder itself, theme source
Here
folder.
you, yeah, here you are giving the class name which CSS class needs to be added to the HTML element. Okay, in the HTML.
Okay.
Suppose I wanted to add it as success. Okay.
Here my question is like these two configurations needed to add that UI
Right,
element
right,
or
right, right.
one
Yeah,
thing
there are two
fine.
places, two activities you need to do. One is you need to mention one class name here, and another one is you need to define the CSS properties for that class name in this folder.
Okay.
Okay.
Like you
Does it
said,
answer your question? Hmm.
we are importing like our properties to mains, like that
Hmm.
means
Hmm.
we are creating one file in that theme folder.
Theme source folder. Here there is a default structure available. Okay, main and design properties. So you can create your own source file and you can import that source files into main folder. That's what I am saying.
How
you can
we are
you can
important?
also see, you can also write the same css here in the main, but it is a
Okay.
good practice to have like that.
Can you
Like
show us?
I'm asking about importing. How we are importing our file to main? Like just creating like that or something.
No, we need to import here. We have not done that one actually.
Yeah, that's
We need to import like this. Like you can see the examples here. If you see here, in the same way, if you see the data grid source file here, it was importing this one. If you see the data grid filters, all those are available here. Those are importing here. So this is custom variables file. It is importing from other folder. So in the same way, we can import our my home CSS source file. Sorry, not CSS file. This is data grid file where we can declare the variables and we can write the CSS using that variable source variables. In the same way,
Okay.
you can also design your source file. You can declare some variable, source variable, and you can use that source variable in the CSS. Okay. So now actually we are importing this, right?
mm.
So what you need to mention here, you need to mention red here as class name. If you see here, see now there is no styling attribute for this. But if you observe the class, class I class, there is a red class added here to this button,
Right.
right? So so for red button, where it is coming, if you see, it is coming from my home.source file. Okay. So if I wanted to add some button, some text color, okay, I wanted to make the text color to white. See this. Okay. Like that, you can add any of CSS you want.
So, Srini, how we can strike out that color? You can see below
Hmm?
strike out here, right? Can we do
No,
that
no.
from
If it is overriding, this property is overriding, then
uh
it will show as a strikeout.
So automatically it
Okay.
will strike out,
Because
or
there
we
are
can.
multiple class, right? There are multiple classes, right? Here, CSS classes. So the
Mm.
same CSS classes have same type of properties defined here. See, color we are defining here and it was already defined there, right? So
Uh-huh.
that is the reason it is showing as striked out. So
Mhm.
this is not actually showing here actually. That is what it tells actually. This color is not applying here. So currently this is active, this color property.
Okay.
If you uncheck this, you will be able to see this color, blue color.
Got it. Yeah, yeah. Got it.
Okay. Any questions?
Like how we will get this UI part, like click on button and right click inspect, right?
Yeah, this one is Chrome Inspect. For any HTML application, any HTML page, you can inspect and see the HTML elements and what are the classes, all those things. Complete HTML body you can see. Right click and
Scroll.
inspect.
Okay.
If you right click on a particular button and inspect, it will directly inspect particular button in the HTML structure.
So Srini, can we do if we am clicking on new cat? Okay, I
Hmm.
want to open one pop-up.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Hmm.
if I'm clicking on new cat, okay,
Hmm.
and opening the pop-up, can
Hmm.
I change to red to some green?
Red to some green. Yeah, I
Means
think
on
based
opening,
on the CSS properties, there are visited, however, there are right pseudo classes are there, right? So using that, you can do that.
pseudo classes.
Pseudo classes. Visited, if a link is there, right? Visited, try with that.
Visited pseudo class. Huh?
Hmm.
Okay,
Usually for link it will be having. Otherwise, what you need to do, so when you are clicking, you are accessing some microflow to show that pop-up or something like that. You need to use
yeah, yeah,
microflow. Okay. So in
right.
that microflow, you need to have some attribute set which can decide to set some dynamic class to that button. There is a dynamic class property that we will discuss later in the widgets. If you
Yeah,
see here,
yeah.
so that will be helpful for you. Based on the attribute in an entity, you can add some dynamic classes. So if something is satisfied, then only add certain class. If it is not satisfied, don't add anything. Like that, we can write the code here. So that what happens if you set some red property when it is clicked, okay, based on
Mm-hmm.
some attribute. So it will
Mm-hmm.
add a red class to the class list here of this button, and the automatically the CSS will be applied.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way you can manage that.
Okay, okay, got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Or you can use the nano flow also if there is no other server side activity involved instead of
So
microflow.
for this type, we don't really need server kind of activity. If
Yeah,
client
but
side,
that message, how you will be able to message that message is a static message, then it is fine. If it needs to show some message based on the some dynamic data coming from the server, then
yeah,
okay.
okay,
So this is how we can write our CSS. We can manage the CSS. We can add the CSS. There are multiple ways to add CSS for each widget. So everything will be same. Okay. So then we will see different widgets we usually use for designing a page. So mainly we will use the layout grid, container. These two we usually mainly use. Layout grid gives you control to split the screen in the sense it will split the screen into number of components that you provide. Based on that, the width will be provided to the elements that will be placed in that grid. So it will use to structure your page. So container will provide you a div element in the HTML, simple div element in the HTML. So you can write your class and control the structure of the page based on your CSS classes. That is how container and layout grid can be used. So if you see here in this page, this is layout grid. Now this layout grid is showing as autofill with one column in it. If you go to the properties, if you see here, the desktop it is autofill currently what it is showing. Autofit content automatically adjusts the content. That is column level. This is grid level properties. What we have seen earlier is one column level properties. Okay, this is sorry. This is grid level properties, layout grid. Okay, here you can define whether it is a full width or fixed width. Usually we will use the full width only for responsiveness. Okay, this is what different properties: spacing top, spacing bottom, spacing left, spacing right are available by default. So if you see, for every spacing property there is a some outer properties, some inner properties. If you are aware of CSS, so there is a property called margin and padding. So when you select outer, it will add margin. When you select inner, it will add padding. So these are the different properties available. So you don't need to write specific CSS to provide some margins or padding. So by default, it will provide some small, medium, large kind of properties. So if those are not sufficient enough to show your UI, then you can write your own class and declare the margins or paddings. In the same way, how the content will be aligned. So if I don't want to show this layout grid completely in tablet, I can select it as a hide on tablet. So in some scenarios, it may be required like this. Or if you want to show some different kind of grid, okay, then you can have additional grid. You can set it layout grids hide on tablet property to no and the remaining two properties to yes, so that it will be shown only on the tablet. If you see here, whenever I am selecting anything here, some CSS class is getting added here. So these are all system defined classes, CSS classes that will be added to this layout grid HTML element. Okay, this is layout grid. Here, what we can do, you can add any layout grid like this. See, full 6, these are different options available. Whenever you are adding a layout grid, 6, this is 4 parts actually. It is splitting into 4 parts, the page width. Okay, 6. So let us see the difference between those two. Okay. I have added one layout grid with 2 columns. Both are having autofill. Okay, this is category grid. So there is no specific change we have observed. Now, so if you observe, this page width has been divided into two parts, two partitions. In the right partition, the title has been placed. So in the same way, we can have different number of partitions. So if you want to place some three partitions, okay, in the left partition some button, in the right partition some button, in the middle partition some title like this, then you can add another add column, right? If you see, it has divided the page width to three partitions and added two buttons in these two partitions and category grid in the center. If you want to align this content, I mean this cancel to right, there are different ways to align it. Align content, right align as row. See this. And category grid needs to be aligned center. Now the look and feel has changed. In this way, you can make use of the layout grid as per your requirement. And if you want to, suppose, uh, I will show you. I will give you some idea. Okay. Background color.
Can you please change back?
I'm applying some background color to different containers in different colors so that you can see the different sizes of the partitions.
Can you please check the spelling for background?
Again, it was mistake.
Ground.
Background. Sorry
Where
for
needed.
typo. Okay, this was applied. So these are three partitions. Now, if you wanted to expand the middle partition more, and if you wanted to give less space to the left partition and right partition, so go to the column, particular column. This is grid, complete grid. This is column. Okay. So go
Hmm.
to this column properties and you can give manual and default. When it is says autofill means by default it is taking 12 by 3. These are three columns, and by default the total number of splits it will do 12 actually, based on bootstrap, if you are aware of bootstrap. So 3 means 12 by 3 it is 4. So now I wanted to give only 2. So 2 to 4, the remaining width will be adjusted to the center one. Okay. So in the same way, how we are adding columns, you can add the rows as well to the same grid. If you observe this layout grid, it is having two rows. Top row has this layout grid again. Second row has this data container. Okay, any questions? Now we will look into the other useful containers. These are data containers. This is data grid. We are already using this. Okay. So data grid is used to display the table records or entity records rows in a tabular format like this, row wise. So with data grid out of the box, we will be able to use search and new record creation and edit record creation and delete record creations also. So and pagination as well. So if you go to the data grid properties, we can set the number of records per page and what message needs to be shown when there are no rows found in particular table, all those. And you can allow the user to multiple selection also.
What is the tooltip page?
Tooltip page, you can create one page and you can navigate to that page as a tooltip of this data grid. Okay, show control bar buttons means, see if I set to no, it is disabling these buttons. So on UA you will not be able to see those buttons. So in the same way, paging bar. So paging bar is this one. So sorry, paging bar is you will see the number of records, those one. So select first. If you wanted to have by default the first record is selected, you can use this. So the default button to trigger means whenever some action like the based on the property you have selected, if single click or double click, suppose I have double clicked on this row, suppose here, suppose if I double click on this row, what needs to happen? So on double click, it can open the default button, which is default button. So here edit is default, that button will be opened like that. So here you can change the width based on percentage to these columns, whatever the columns available. You can delete the columns if you don't want to be on the UI, and you can change the width like this also. Now it is showing 16%, 34%, 25, 25. If you click on the reset column, again it will be distributed equally. If you want to change the width based on the pixels, you can select the pixels and you can decide the pixels. Okay. So this is data source. So in domain model, we have seen entities created, all those things, attributes, its attributes. So entity in the sense one database tables, right? So if you want to see the data somewhere on the page, you need to use the data containers. And in this data grid container and all the data containers will have some data source type. So data grid has these different types of data sources available: database, XPath, microflow, and association. So now we have selected the category as entity for the database source. Then what it will do, it will retrieve all the records in the database and send it to the data grid to display on the UI. So visibility, you can control the visibility of the entire data grid based on some expression, based on some attribute value. It is not listing any attribute value because here we are having category entity, right? So in category entity, if you have any boolean attribute declared, that attributes will be listed, because based on the true or false value it will be declared. If you want to control the visibility based on some other value other than apart from the true or false, then you need to use the expression. In the same way, for every control, usually you will see these properties, visibility properties, and in the same way you will see the module rules. If you select this one, you will be able to select the different rules. So based on the role selected, that control will be displayed to that user logged into the application. Okay, this is data grid. So data view is used to display one record information. So in edit page, if you go to the edit page, new page. For edit page, we have not defined any action. Okay, this is new page. This is data view. So in the data grid, we have selected one. No, no, sorry. In data grid, if you want to edit, okay, I will show you. I am selecting This will be navigated. Show a page. Old page. New edit page. Okay. And double click, it has landed on the edit. Why? Because the edit button is the default button. Previously there is no action defined for this edit button. Now when you double click on any record, so that record will be passed to this page, and this page is having data view. It will be able to display one record information. So by using the data view, we can show the record information like this, that row information. The other way is you can select any row and click on edit. So data grid is used to display multiple number of records at a time, and data view is used to display the single record information. Okay, whenever you see any data container, okay, so and whatever the output parameter we are returning as data source are, okay, okay, that parameter, that entity attributes are available here to create some widgets and show the data. So that is data view. So for multiple number of data grids, there are other grids also available in designing the layout. Okay, now we will go through the data grid all this again in the widget section. Now we are discussing about the layouts, how different layouts can be formed. Okay, as part of layout we usually use this data grid in this way to display. Okay, there is another one, template grid. Template grid is used to display the data side by side. If you see here, the first record is showing, the records are showing row wise, right, one after another in row wise. So if you want to display column wise, then you can use the template grid. So did you observe the difference? This is data grid, this is template grid. So this can be formatted more. Okay, this is by default it is showing like that, but this can be formatted in a different way to give good look and feel. Okay, so that is the difference between data grid and template grid. So here it is divided it into two records per row, like in two columns. See the number of rows, the number of columns. So you can decide number of columns here. Okay, in the same way the data source property. Okay, so this is another grid that can be used to change your layout. So mainly we will use layout grid, then container, then for displaying the data in different kinds of layout, we can use the data grid or template grid.
So in which
In the
scenario we
same
can
way,
use
yeah,
template grid?
yeah, tell me. I
In
have
which
shown you,
scenario
na,
we will
based
use
on,
the
no, not scenario, based on your requirement, client requirement.
okay.
That everything will be based on your client requirement. They wanted to see some data like this, okay? We have a list of records, okay? Suppose if you have a list of records just with some one attribute or two attributes, and they don't want to waste the entire full page width, right? So in
Hmm.
that case, suppose if they wanted to show it like that,
Okay.
okay, but it will have the fixed number of columns,
Hmm.
okay? So in the same way, gallery. Here we need to add the items in a grid format. Like generally, you will see any website, e-commerce website, the products are listed, right?
Right.
That so we need to add our own widget, our own image, all those things. You can add your own image and your own text. I mean, not own text, the data available to display the data based on the table. You can add the image and text attributes and show it in a grid format. Okay, for that gallery is useful.
What is a gallery? It's a widget, right?
Yeah, it is also another grid widget, another data widget. These are all data containers which are useful for display the data in different kinds of layout
Okay.
for different purposes. So this is list view. Usually you will see in a mobile applications generally with some thumbnail on the left and some text on the beside the thumbnail and some arrow on the right. So in that way, this list view can be used. So not exactly, it is something like row by row. The difference between the data grid and it is you can customize the row actually. In the data grid, you cannot customize. If you see the data grid, okay, you cannot customize this. If you want to add any additional text, static text or anything, you cannot add here. Okay. So in that case, we can use the list view. The difference between main the but the list view can show you. This is list view. If you see the list view, okay, this is how list view is generated by default. Okay, but if you see, there are no headers. Okay, so it can be formatted in a different way if you want. Okay, I wanted to have one image here. Okay, after image I wanted to add text, and below the text I wanted to another text something. So suppose let us take this case only. So there are three attributes we are seeing. One uh, this is sort order, this is name, this is some active yes or no, something like that, right? So if I wanted to place the yes to the below, you can format like this by using the layout grid with the combination of different elements. You can do that. Suppose if I wanted to split it into 363, and then I have added category ID here, name here, and if I wanted to add created on here, I can add it. This is how the list view can be used. Okay.
Okay.
So there is another one, data grid 2, which is having more control than data grid. This is second version of the data grid. The difference between data grid and data grid 2 is data grid 2 will have column wise searching. Here we are having different search options, right? On based on the attributes. It will have more control. So you can hide the columns. All those things are available here, but you need to add the attributes manually. You can give any caption. Okay, this is data grid 2. Okay, so these are all different data grids, data containers useful for designing the layouts, page layouts. So for today, I am stopping here. We will end this session here. So if anyone has any questions, we can discuss on that.
Srini,
Yeah, tell me.
I have one query actually. It is not related to current class. Generally, I'm asking. So, current
That
situation, can I shift to another company? Meaning, is there any scope for calls for this Mendix?
Yeah, that you can easily identify and search by searching it in the LinkedIn, all those things, right? Now you can see the current openings.
This, I mean, this time some decision or something there in the market saying, right? So is it good time to shift to another company at that time? Thinking.
In my opinion,